happy Financial Task Force Friday. Got a mighty team today, but we are definitely missing some key players, just unable to join us today. So, basic big picture, I want to go over my attempted homework, maybe catch up Travis on what we're trying to do and accomplish with this spreadsheet, where there are gaps or slash walls, about where are we hitting those roadblocks, and who can help us with those. And then also Lori had the really good idea of just reframing our goals, because we've been meeting pretty regularly, so just kind of taking stock of where we're at, and any new things that have come up. So, would you mind, another thing is I was in round updates. Usually I pass the mic to Rick because he's in all of the meetings, and I wasn't able to attend the PSEMSIC meeting. Do you mind giving just a nice brief what your takeaways were?
Yeah, I can. Great. Ellen, the PSEMSIC seems to really have a good handle now. We've talked through some things on what we need and how we need it. And some of the questions, and it's kind of hard because we're throwing out numbers, and I don't have unfortunately I didn't get the transcript of the meeting, so I don't have all that stuff with me, but I know that basically really we're somewhere honestly in the 4 to 5 million range of needing over the next 6 or 8 months, just for everything. There's 2.4 for the water tower, and then the biggest question is, are we going to be able to use the bond vote? I know you have and you had the documentation from the bond vote back in 2021, and there's some question of exactly whether or not we can move forward based on that wording of that bond vote, just because the way things are at this point. And I think, originally it was 4.9, I think, was the bond, was the requested bond, but then we used all the ARPA money, which was 1.3, and then there's the grant money, which is 997,000, but that's all dependent upon whether or not we actually are billed the full amount for the project. And what I mean by that is that there is a possibility that it's going to come in less. The expenses will come in less. I don't mean a whole lot less, but every 100,000 helps, right?
Does that mean does that less come out of what we would get reimbursed, or our side?
It comes out of what we were reimbursed.
Okay.
Well, because it's based on a percentage. There's percentages.
20% of the cost. So if the whole project comes down a little less, they're only going to give us the 20% of that final amount.
Yeah. So the project may cost a little less, but in return we will get less from the grant. So that's kind of where it started. And then you said that we paid the 300,000 back to PSEMSIC yesterday or today, which was anticipated that we had to pay that in order to free up the money from the line of credit.
The construction line of credit.
Yeah. The construction line of credit.
Construction line of credit, which is the water tower.
On the water tower, because now we have bills that have come in for the water tower. So, and
before you move on that,
yes.
This was a point of confusion for me, but we were out of time last time.
Yep.
Is that a non-revolving line of credit as well, like this one that has to, the other one that we have that has to be paid off at the end of the year because by law we can't carry over, or is the construction line of credit something that is not necessarily hard due date at the end of June?
It's a revolving, because it's a construction. My understanding is that we can keep borrowing as long as the purposes of the money is to go towards construction.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what's the balance?
Backtrack there. Yeah, good. Okay.
What's the balance on the construction line of credit?
At this point, I'm not sure. I think we owed 1.8, and then we went down 300. I'm gonna be really honest, I don't know. All these
that was-
I
numbers
think it was like closer to like 900
could be.
at 900,000, something like that in the ballpark. I don't think it broke a million, but because of what we needed to free up to complete the payments, that 300 was what was outstanding to get paid down.
I'm trying to look in my notes with all my arrows.
Yeah, there's lots of numbers in them.
Yeah, this is part of my struggle, is that we talk about these numbers, but I don't really see anything hard,
It's
you
not
know, like
reflected in the
on a hard
spreadsheets.
copy.
Yes.
So,
I can tell you exactly what they are if you'd like.
come,
Plug them in.
Hold on, let me grab.
Elaborate and educate.
you have spoken, or was one.
Construction line of credit, there's a $306,000. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we paid on.
That's what we
I'm
had.
trying to see if he had anything here with what the actual line of credit was.
Yeah, because what I remember is that we can't get the 1.8
I
total
wasn't really
because
gonna do this, so you'll have to bear my writing. This is-
We're all good.
All right, so basically what you have, and this is what I'm gonna put in for Rick on Monday, but basically this is the GL. You had 831 was drawn. All right, we paid back 306 because that's proceeds from the grant. That allowed us to immediately invoice these two invoices, 178, which she did give us. We have to turn around and pay back the proceeds from number 3 that we received from the grant. On Monday, she's going to reimburse us another we're gonna draw it another 646. So on Monday, you will end up with the credit line being drawn exactly this amount.
1,370.
Now, what's gonna happen is when number 4 invoice and number 5 invoice come in from the grant, you will owe back these two figures. Okay, and then you will be drawn this much. So you might as well calculate it at this much, 1.22957,921. Do not look at the general ledger because the general journal entry that was posted yesterday is not correct. This was done beforehand. So now understand this will take a month to come back, Carter. So realistically, as of Monday, when Ellen gives us the 646, she'll have already taken back the 35. This will be the balance that you owe, that you've drawn on the credit line.
okay. So how should I accurately portray that in this spreadsheet? Because right now I have this line that says construction line of credit. So I feel like
So this is what's happened since yesterday. This was the original balance.
838, yeah.
You had to pay this back in order to free it up, right? Okay, because they won't give us any money.
Yeah.
These are the two invoices that she was holding that I tried to...
Stacy was holding.
No,
Ellen at
that
the sunset.
Ellen was
Oh,
one
she wasn't paying these.
because we didn't have this. This right here is the reimbursement from this invoice that we already received from the grant, and that has to go in per the grant agreement to pay down.
Yeah.
Once that's done, which I believe it's already done, then this is the new invoice of 646 from JPC card that we've already paid. I paid it yesterday.
Gotcha.
And she's going to give us a reimbursement on Monday. That means on Monday afternoon, you will be drawn this amount.
We're at 137, so I would put 137.
Yeah. These two, once invoice number 4 and invoice number 5 come in from the grant, I get 20% of the total invoice back. That then goes to pay the line of credit down. It'll end up reducing you down to this is what you will
Yeah,
be drawn.
the 20% that we get back could come back today, tomorrow, or sometime down the road.
Yeah, I would expect
So
this
yeah,
one.
that's a future that we can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even
So it's
account for that.
137,046.77.
And then the 2.4 is the total amount available on that line of credit.
Originally available.
Originally.
So the way I calculate it is that once you have to pay back these two proceeds from the grant, this is what you're gonna be left with.
Probably when we're thinking that would be because we're now looking. we would consider that the end of June. Because that's, right now we're doing like beginning of the month, end of the month. So this would be closer to like the end of the month.
That's what I got left to finish the project.
Okay. So I would put that as like the letter of credit value at the end of the month. Probably like the 117, what's available on the letter of credit.
I don't know that, I bet we're not gonna get, the state's going on holiday basically, and I bet you we don't get this for 6 weeks, this 129.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
then let's, until we get a better number, let's just stick with what we have for the.
This is what
137.
you will have as.
That's that's what we owe on the letter of credit as of
Monday
basically
afternoon.
Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
So let's go with that for
That's
right
the
now.
137,046.
I
Yeah.
currently have it in May. Should I keep
Yep.
it there or should I shift it
This
over to
one.
June?
I would keep it in, I would put it for end of May, beginning of June.
Okay. It can live here. All right.
Are these numbers based on historical figures or?
Great question, Travis. So, these numbers are based on a few spreadsheets. So the framework or this template is what Kyle has started.
Yep.
They've tweaked a little bit, added some basic rows. But I can speak firmly on the expense side, the salaries and salaries and benefits. They came from this spreadsheet, which I got. This was pretty sure a minute ago when Jim and Rick sat down and they drafted this.
Sure.
And then the one before that, Jim had also formatted, but this one I think folded in a couple things. This is when I start to get like what numbers are what. So there's this spreadsheet, which has been helpful.
Okay, so that's driving something, right? Those numbers are feeding into our summary spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
So go to the summary spreadsheet real quick.
Do you want me to split screen or minus?
Either or, whichever's more comfortable for you.
Okay.
So those source numbers that you're putting there, can you make a comment in there, add a comment that tell us what spreadsheet, what the name is, and its source?
Yes.
Because that's the type of question that the bank will give, or if we need to go back and validate the information. That's why I started putting the comments in all of these. So at least if we have that, and then be like, if we can title as of, okay, where it says like on
He loves gum book one.
where it says like as of 7/1/25 on the other spreadsheet, I would just, from a nomenclature standpoint, I would name the spreadsheet, date the spreadsheet, and put a revision number.
Yeah.
Because that way it's really explicit about what we're referring to in case we have to go back and reference it. Because we've been kind of playing that game.
For sure. They may do this.
Just out of curiosity, why wouldn't we just have it as multiple books in a single sheet?
Honestly, to your point, I would pull it in as a tab.
Yeah.
And have it there, but
Copy it in.
depends on how people want to set it up, so that's why.
Here, 1 second.
Well,
But we're gonna have to name it anyhow, we're gonna have some kind of naming convention if it's a source
Yeah.
document.
Okay, I'm going just to say that this was, I'm just gonna say May of 25 for now. And then I'm gonna have to download this as a,
Only 70,000 off, that's not bad for that, for my old brain,
What's that?
that balance. Oh, I see.
okay.
Small victories.
Yeah, you missed the excitement last night of trying to build a spreadsheet by committee. It's,
So I had a prior commitment, and I was juggling those, and I thought to myself, they're working on a spreadsheet, and too many cooks spoil the broth when you're trying to do that. To actually, it's hard to build a spreadsheet by committee.
Why can't I just try?
I felt better knowing that
Oh,
you two
enable
were
it.
here.
There we go. Oh, okay.
Well, because, the fact is, this one right here, right, this is the yeah, this is just the projections for the next year, which is really all they want.
Yeah.
And then what we did yesterday was we took the actuals out of the trial balance of the revenue up to
This
what,
month.
a week ago.
Yeah.
And now we have one from today, which is in almost end of month, I guess.
As Carter is working through the machinations, what I think would be best is, I didn't know if Jim and Stacy were going to be here, is it possible for, I think Stacy's comfortable with like adding information to a spreadsheet. And I think Jim would probably be comfortable with reviewing it, making sure it's good information. Can we do for lack of a better phrase, fill in the blank? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking the tabs behind it need to be, because us trying to find it, Jim knows the numbers and Stacy knows Jim, and they can probably fill in the blanks for us much better than we can.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking about from like the tabs in the back. And I didn't know if Stacy was going to be here to tell us if
No.
were they able to get those reports by month? Do you know?
I was hoping Chip would be on so we could ask him. I want to ask Chip directly. It confuses me that they don't know.
I don't think I think boggles.
Well, I was trying to be nice.
You
No.
want me to leave?
No.
No.
I don't want you to-
No. This is the
Actually, the word I used with somebody today was mind blowing.
yeah.
That little emoji. Yeah. Okay, so this is this is the numbers that Jim gave me, but I am not super solid on them. Oh my gosh dang it, I made them go away.
Well, all they did was, I mean, it looks, honestly, it looks to me like they just took they literally just took all the salaries and everything and just divided them by 12, which is sort of okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so to explain this one, he just combined everything, you're right, it was consolidated, because this is what happens when he attempted to break it out month by month, and this is what we brought in, which are, huge bumps, nondescript, versus, but I also wasn't super sure because there are quite a lot of variation. Like, for example, I don't get how in December we could have only expended $103,000. That doesn't cover salaries or benefits. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop going on these historical numbers and then try to, again, look at projections. But I was just trying to use this to, don't look at the dates up here, but I was just trying to use this to just basically gut check what do these other numbers look like. So it's what does that matter?
I mean, I'm fine with. I think
360.
as long as that number at the end of the year makes sense, the summary, we probably should put a sum total at the end of the 12 months. I didn't think about that. So if you scroll all the way over to the right, yeah, it probably makes sense to put a sum at the end of that, so we can,
In this column?
yeah,
Okay.
we just do a sum. And you can just throw a sum function in there and roll it across.
Do you want a sum of the,
Yeah, I'm just horizontally. I
Yeah.
think you're doing sum horizontally.
and of what we have expended of each, both like revenue? Okay.
Well, I think that's just, sorry, I think my wife forgot that I'm coming over.
Is there a school disbursement or something in December?
Yeah, aren't there like two disbursements? One
Is that why the 2 million and the 3 million versus the 360,000? That's gotta be that, right?
Yeah, I think those are the two disbursements. There's two disbursements. You should be able to just take that formula and just drag it up. So click on the bottom right-hand corner of that and drag that all the way up. And then you can delete any of the, when we get through it, we can delete whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So what I'm wondering is, we have the one cash flow account. Is there something, can we get, are Stacy and Jim able, I'm gonna be really rude, guys. Are they able to fill in the blanks if we give them this?
I think so. I think that this is kind of the main hurdle. Well, sorry, my opinion, and then I'll pass Mike. I think that, yes, building a strong template will be a tool. I keep saying to prove to the banks and to show to the community, but a really strong template is what we need anyways to build a cash flow. Nemrick has said over and over that we won't get a cash flow with their software alone, and that people download the data and then put it through their own
Mechanism.
Yes. So I think that if we do and we prove that it works, that it is worth their time, and it should be pretty straightforward. And then also teeing up, these are, the fields that we need. Nemrick/Chip, can you build us those reports so that they can plug and play? That's my 2 cents. What do you want?
Can I ask you, does this include both the general fund and water and sewer salaries?
This is just general fund.
Okay,
Good question. Yeah.
And the totals are like all the departments. Everything in this and is the trial balance. So everything is right here, and we just took the bottom number
Positive.
of the revenue and the expenses and plugged it in
Yeah.
yesterday. So, see, I'm just gonna tell you, my personal feeling is this spreadsheet, did you say that Rick and Jim did this one?
So this one it does actually have that tab in it, which, oh, God. Okay, wait, I'm gonna look back here, sorry, gang. Let me see what y'all see. So it does have this original, and I think it just does a deep dive where it is putting, and then this is where I have been trying to plug and play here. But I kind of,
Okay, see.
yeah. But for some things I was like, I'm not gonna include that because we did pay the school. So some of this information is like outdated. And it does break it up because this is when that, as of, look at that, April. So
I guess what I'm trying to say, please correct me if my thinking is like totally off, because I'm just kind of thinking.
we're learning our thing.
If we have the projections, which is, this is based on the tax rate, this is what we should get.
Yep, for the taxes and
And the
whatnot.
and then we have some historical data of like how much like other income, which is pretty consistent through the year, okay? I mean, from year to year. It kind of makes sense to me, just like in this trial balance, it has estimated expenses and it has estimated from the budget, and then it takes the actuals out of the budgetary amount. So when I think of the cash flow, if we're using kind of those same numbers, this is the budget for expenses, and we have a clue like when the taxes are coming in, when do we owe the school, that kind of stuff. If that's the main sheet, and then in the background we have the monthly, like at the end of every month, after everything is cleared, then they go in and put in those numbers again on the back sheet and keep it that way. I don't know if I just made any sense or not.
No, what I think you're doing, you're going against the forecast versus actual.
Yeah,
is
but-
what you're looking for.
Right, because that's what the bank wants to see.
But are they gonna want
Right?
it updated periodically?
Yeah,
once we-
Well,
Yeah, probably.
What we
Yeah.
would probably want to do then is let's build the forecast as like item, like workbook 1. Then it's pretty easy to copy the workbook and we can build an actual and add in additional columns, like build a column like next to each month and put in some actuals. Actually, it'd probably be like 2 columns. And this is where I mean, I hated accounting. And I can tell you all my 3 accounting jokes later on. But what I think we'd want to look at is you would have an forecast actual variance is usually what I was thinking about from like a finance standpoint after each month. And we could either build that out as we could do it as individual months, because it's always going to be, and then we could have an updated workbook. So you're really kind of like working off of a couple of workbooks. We have our initial forecast and we can go through revs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 12 and update that as our master. Then we would have a variance type of tool. And this is, honest to God, folks, tell me how wrong I am because I'm not an accountant. You'd have a variance type of report that's our actuals and then an update type of thing. I know it's a lot, but I'm not an accountant, so I don't know what the best way to approach it is.
And so, because some SIC's just looking for lack of a better term, proof of solvency.
Yeah.
Justification for a loan. And we're using historic numbers because we don't have
Well, no,
a good.
I don't think we should be using historic numbers.
Well, I was going to say I think we should plug in as much actual as we can, but delineate in the spreadsheet maybe by color and a or a note that these are any numbers that we have to put in that are based on historic projections are delineated, and what our best estimates are. Where we have real numbers to plug in, we put that there so they can tell what's what.
Yeah, I would just use notes for right now.
Sure.
Let's not overdo conditional formatting until
Sure.
we've got something that's workable. Plus, I know Carter's dying to do conditional formatting.
But would it be helpful to also have a tab that just shows our total city assets, including our total tax base, against our total liabilities? Because I think what we've determined from previous conversations is we're in a pinch with cash flow, but we're not necessarily overextended to the point that we would be,
No, I agree with
bad loan, right?
That's You can either put it in the workbook or if it's another document. I'm sure that Jim has something.
Yeah.
What was it? Our base? I can't remember.
Grand list or
Grand-
I don't know the tax.
The master base or
language.
Grand
list.
list.
Yeah.
Grand list.
Yeah, I think I'm going to.
This is
Yeah.
what they're looking for.
But I was actually reading the
Oh.
fine print. Do not include capital expenditures paid from capital improvement grants or in the form of proceeds of bonds or bond grant anticipation notes. So can we not include all of the windfall that we will get from grants in this document? It'll be hard to
That's
prove.
what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
That's the last one.
See, but
Oh,
the
my
grants are
God.
project-based typically, not just for the general ledger. So it's not, you're getting money, sure, but it's not money that would have been spent anyway. It's you're choosing to take on another liability, but it just happens to be paid for.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessarily would be seen as a benefit.
Okay, so this is talking about capital improvement grants. So is the water tower considered a capital improvement?
So it's
I mean,
infrastructure, but
is the Causeway project a capital improvement grant? Is that what? Okay, I'm looking at Frank because he's our grant master.
Historically, we would capitalize those items. In this setting, a lot of times what they do, they expense it out in order to add it to the tax rate for the year so they can generate the revenue. If they have non-free funded it through the sinking funds, which they actually did that activity. So it would be considered a capital item in most accounting, in all accounting principles.
So, doing a quick Google search for the AI overview, because that's how we learn. Capital improvement in government context, long-term investment in physical infrastructure, property that adds substantial value, extends useful life, or adapts the property to new use. Physical infrastructure, things like roads, bridges, parks, public buildings, and structures that are essential for public use.
Yeah.
So, examples,
Yeah.
improving a road, installing new infrastructure, e.g. water pipes. So I think we're getting into water towers.
Yeah, a physical structure that provides a service or something to the community. Yeah.
So,
But the water,
I'm gonna get out of your way, but I'll say two things.
dude, you're not in the way.
I think you've got enough. Generally, when you go to the bank or something like this, what they're looking for is not the extra stuff. You're trying to show them that in a normal sense of operations that you're solving. Okay? So you would normally exclude those additional items. Those are cash flow. Those are cash flow challenges, but they're not an indication of solvency. You're making an investment into capital items. Okay, that increases the assets of the company and isn't necessarily an indication of whether or not you can pay your bills, which is what the bank wants to know,
Yeah.
correct?
so if I just heard what you said, Frank,
Yeah.
what they really want to know is
Are
how
you
much
bringing,
taxes we're bringing in and how much of our everyday expenses are.
or are you gonna go in the hole are you going in the hole every month? Can you pay your bills?
Yeah,
Right.
and that brings up, in the recent meetings with the Sunset, have they been made aware that we believe we've stopped the accounting error from the last meeting and then the water and sewer rates are being rectified? So that halts us digging a deeper hole.
Yeah.
Normally, my dealing with large financing like this, and again, this is just from private business experience, they're looking for a pro forma so that when the bank examiner comes in, they can, in the loan, they can show that they did their due diligence. So what you're trying to provide them with is that our revenues are over our expenses.
Yeah.
And they haven't been, but they are going to.
And that, I think that's, if we can put in what is in projected for right now into this, where we have taxes, so like where we have taxes and penalties, which that was just the thing I pulled up. So we can put in, Jim can input, here are the taxes, what we're expecting to collect each month. And, there's going to be the two big hits in the year. So there was May, and then there's whatever was the other month that we collect taxes.
Like
6 months down the road. So
November.
November. So
We
May
go
and
out
November.
October, good.
So we got May and November. He can fill that in.
Yeah.
And that might be a good thing to just kind of, can you just highlight those cells in like yellow?
Yeah.
I think that'd be
I
a
can
great
do
way
that.
to tell
That's
Jim
easy.
what we can do. Yeah.
So normally with pro formas for a bank, you're not worried about when it hits. It's not a cash flow. It's a lot easier to project revenue divided by 12 months,
They want it broken out by month.
Oh, they do want to.
Yeah. So,
And I think because we get those big hits, it shows that, we're solvent, but we have cash flow issues because of how we receive revenue.
and if there's anything else he wants to put in, then I don't know if licenses and fees is even the word, if there's enough in there to even document. The reclaimed taxes from prior years, I don't know if you just throw that into other. I was just putting
I
this.
thought it was a thing.
What?
This was something I thought was happening and it's not. I just learned.
Oh.
So that's all right.
So pretty much everything else then goes into all other.
Yeah.
So that's all
So
our non-tax revenue, like the.
So-
anything else that's
Yeah.
happening.
So this is where I'll make a note. What's the shortcut for a note?
do you
right
do
click
comment?
comment.
It's
Yeah, and if
really
you put the
not
right,
hard to read.
it should be new comment right there.
Yeah.
This is
and
the
then
total balance as of today.
It'll put the little Tyndall in the corner that tells you that there's a note on that cell.
So this is
Yeah.
what, these are the estimated
Wait,
revenues.
so you
This
just
is
do
the
right click,
received
so
today.
this is, it literally is this, it's just right click.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
I
do
love
have
control stuff.
Yeah,
And we're pretty close. I mean,
All right.
that's a good percentage.
Hey, just, are we actually solving?
No.
That's what you're trying to figure out.
No.
I want to comment on something, you're asking a question. This is a pro forma for the bank as a operating tool, being able to judge how we're doing going forward, and in addition to being able to test the numbers. The accuracy of the information going into the financial statements related to account allocation and expense and revenue postings, if that's not accurate, then when somebody tries to pull those numbers out to plug them into that, so this is where the question comes in, is if you're not posting expense properly now, and you don't change the way you're posting it, then you can have a wonderful projection, but every month when you go to your actuals to test your numbers, I've been through this 100 times, when you go to the actuals to pull that out, statements to test whether or not your pro forma is running on schedule, whether you're behind or ahead, or maybe you had a bad estimate and you just need to adjust it for the first 3 months till you get it tweaked. If the person that's putting the numbers into the books doesn't put them in properly, then the number, or they don't know where they're trying to pull those from, then you will never have an accurate understanding. So the answer to your question is I would have a serious question without some really significant training.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
And I'm not going to be rude either, but the reality of it is I run into this when I try to just reconcile the water tower. And Karen and I talked about this today a little bit, where the expense is not where it's supposed to be. So if you're going to go ahead and grab that out every month to test your pro forma, but the expenses aren't recorded properly from the beginning, and the person that's putting them in doesn't understand what you're trying to achieve.
I have a feeling that this may be where, and I've got some free time coming up, where we may have to sit downstairs and go through this, a couple of us, and just say, hey,
Yeah.
here's what needs to happen, and get the documentation, because yeah, you're 100% right. That's part of the problem, and I was hoping Stacy would let us know if we could get the monthlies.
The auditing process, if you can clear this up for me. I was surprised at the tax accounting error, right? That slowly dug that hole, that had been there for a while. It was
I know, yeah, that was one of the
either state and federal, some type of state and federal.
The money that comes back?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was
Homestead.
added
The homestead.
incorrectly. So that the exemption money, it being entered as a line item of income was a big problem, right? And from what I understand up to this point, the reason it wasn't captured in the audit is because our auditors are just looking for, is the math all correct? Not, was it forensically accounted correctly? Have we ever had an audit of, are you actually maintaining the books in an appropriate way?
So your lead accountant's named Danny Basham. It's not Bill Kaiser, over him, Danny Basham. I was trained with him from the time I was 25 years old. The owner of that company worked with my father for 20 years.
Audit.
The one that we've had.
So that might
So
be
I don't-
something else we have to recommend to the city council, is we need to have,
Like,
So is the audit the right tool for what we're trying to do? It doesn't seem like we're trying to make sure that, given the information that we provide you, is all the math correct. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, is the accounting being done appropriately, regardless of if the numbers wash or not? Are all the line items where they should be? Are there any glaring errors like the tax
That's what
issue?
Chip is doing in part,
Right.
going through, is trying to identify
And I
things.
think that you might have answered your own question, because a lot of the errors that Chip is finding were pre-existing and have been through a number of different audits already, and we question why those numbers weren't questioned by the auditors, because historically that's what happens, is when your balance sheet doesn't add up, then usually the way the audits were always done at the nursing homes anyways, and the same exact accountants, is that I have certain accounts, you reconcile them, and they were perfect when they came in, and they came in and verified that you had to provide them backup. Many of the entries that I saw Chip making are from previous fiscal years that have already been through audit, so that would almost answer your question, that no, I think the answer to the question is no, it's not going to.
So we have to have a signed audit agreement.
The audits were questioned. A lot of people questioned the audits, and what we got in
Years.
response was mayoral temper tantrum and audits thrown up in the air. I'm not exaggerating, that's what happened.
That's the truth.
I remember that.
We were told the audits were perfect and we should mind our own business and grow the hell up and leave. That
Yes.
was how it was conveyed, quite accurately in fact.
Good thing I was around.
And I don't think that there are such fundamental issues that you have to be concerned about all these bad things that people want to talk about. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you start talking about account allocation and being able to understand where you're at and trust the numbers, it's kind of obvious, considering what Chip's finding and what I've seen, that
We have a problem with where the money's been put to be able to make sure that this is correct.
so that it can make sound.
All this work is for naught if it's garbage in, garbage out. And
The auditors could only use the numbers they were given.
Right. Right.
And they put that as a disclaimer on every audit.
Right. So we almost can't, you know, depending on what Chip is doing, is he working with live data? Is he like, does this include, this printed off today, does this include the work that Chip is doing? Or is he, am I making any sense? In my world, we test in a dev or a UAT environment before we do it in production. So my question is Chip making his changes right in production, like every day, right in the normal course of
I
business?
don't see how you guys can do what you want to do until you have real numbers from Chip.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, we have to be able to fill in the blank, and we're gonna have to go down there and work with.
But you can spin your wheels sort of making up what you need, and then he may come up with something totally different,
right.
Right.
which makes no sense.
And that's why, to your point, book name, date, rev, because we're gonna have to adjust this multiple times.
Yeah.
Living document.
Well, and that's why I was thinking that revenue and expense sheet that Jim and because we know at this point, we know what our grand list is.
We know what the revenue is gonna be
Basically,
roughly.
we know what the revenue is going to be. We have salaries and benefits at this point.
Based on, is this the one that Jim sent you?
Yes, this is the.
So what I think we can do is pretty much just move that into the format that we have. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what it is. Put it wherever, and then we just have to go in and look at, see if we can confirm this with Chip and Jim, if these numbers are valid,
Yeah.
and validate them, and we have to get, I mean,
I've seen some of the stuff on the spreadsheet has already been, the journal entries have already been made.
Yeah, so to go back to your question, Lori, yes, he is actively affecting our accounting system.
Today.
Yes, of course he informs, there's a number of ways. It's either, hey, can I request, or I have a question about this. Or, hey, I made this journal entry to make this balance out.
Well,
And appropriately.
then in the new backup system that we've acquired,
Yeah.
do we have multiple layers of backups by date? So if something is done incorrectly, we can go back and restore?
Yeah,
So I would think if
That's
that's
my
the case, if you're
understanding.
working in prod, you need multiple restore points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The, if we can get Jim and Chip to concur on this stuff. And we're doing this.
The problems with your audit and all that other stuff you're worried about isn't going to affect your ability to do that. You can do this, it's just, you're on the right track.
As we-
Sorry for you.
Yeah, well, what I'm, and we may be going the same direction, is what I'm thinking about right now is there is, we have an open position for city manager, right?
Yeah.
Office
yet.
and administrator, financial. So not the town administrator, but yes, somebody up here that should be helping, having additional oversight.
Oh, what, so
Financial and administrative office
is the
manager.
city manager on hold for a period of time? Is that, okay.
Okay, so what's the progress on it? Because this, I mean, because I hate to say, Jim isn't going to deal with it. Jim he's made it clear he's not a computer guy. And I'm sorry, but this is someone that has to be comfortable with getting into the systems. And I think Jim is awesome with our processes and procedures, and I think that's his comfort zone, which we need. But we need somebody, what's the progress on getting someone in here that can own this other than the 4 or 5 or 6 of us doing this an hour and a half a night?
I was gonna say, spend the 8 hours a day, 40 hours.
This is a serious, what's the progress on that? Because I think that's the other thing we need to really get us hiring
I
on.
don't know if it's been posted. I know that the last council meeting, we reviewed the job description and discussed it.
it's
And it's been posted.
It's on the
So,
website,
We're,
and it's
yeah.
been posted.
and we've put
What
it
kind of
out.
salary are we throwing out there for this position?
Not enough.
It's sort of low, like around 50,000, is it?
50 to 60, I think is
Yeah.
what, but that's just, then there's a depending on the experience kind of thing. So,
I thought that depending on experience was whether or not they got 50 or 60. But.
no, I think the start was,
It was 50 to 60, depending on experience. And then when Carter raised that as an issue at the city council meeting, based on what she knows about other towns, there was if the right person comes along, maybe we can look at it. But it was not concretely stated. And as I look at the job description, it sort of stretches from answering the phone to being a super accountant.
Yes.
How many hats would you like?
And the problem with someone looking at it and seeing 50 to 60,000 is that a person who thinks he's at 70 or she is at 70,000 won't even apply necessarily because they don't want a job at 50 or 60.
Right. I hear you there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm just
No.
bringing it up
Yeah.
because we can only fix so much without someone to own it.
Yes. I think what you're speaking to is the continuity with whatever progress we make. If the clerk's office is
Yeah.
not really able to adapt to this new process, because this is, again, sorry to keep saying it, but for the bank, for the people, and also internally, so we can know and have this control mechanism of just referencing.
So, with the template that we built, can we, I think at this point, we're just chewing soup. Let's just,
Yeah.
Jim, Stacy, everybody has to do their best job to fill it out. I'm willing to volunteer and just sit, come in for an hour or something in the mornings or over lunch or something like that and try and help out and make any explanations and be the spreadsheet jockey and help them out. I don't know what Chip has done. I need to understand what Chip has done with the accounting. And I think seems like Jim has a pretty good grasp of what he's done from an accounting standpoint with the accounts. So I think Jim can do a good job of that. But how soon do we need this for the bank? Last week?
Yeah.
So,
Sometime in the next couple of weeks, because
Yeah.
what happens is, so this week, the loan committee would meet to go to the board next week.
yeah.
And then the next week, the loan committee would meet, and then
So-
the next week, the board would meet. And this has to go to the board.
I think we need to email this to Jim, Stacy, Rick. We go through it, we build the numbers, and even if I have to sit there and spreadsheet jockey like we're doing right now, make a ton of comments, how we're backing it up, do that. Because what we're doing in a vacuum here without Jim and everything is just kind of
Yeah.
tough, and we just have to block out the time. The flip side of it is we have to get somebody hired as soon as possible to do this. I'm just trying to think.
The good news is that, as I recall in the meeting, what's that?
Give me good news.
Was that Pasumsic sees the work, they see the progress, they see that we found the errors, that we're actively, we've actively
And what's going on?
stopped the bleeding.
Yeah.
And so there's a possibility that they will turn this year's, the amount that we're supposed to pay them June 30 into a 1-year note.
Gotcha. And you said the water team has adjusted the billing or gotten something figured out so that
These rates are voted on.
rates are, okay, so is that gonna be at least a net even? We're not losing money?
Plus with that, I believe there's some built-in overage, what, 5% or something?
Yeah, so there's
Okay.
a
So there's a bit.
Now, moving forward, of course, there's all sorts of deficits. There's like we know where the sewer deficit is $1 million. And so they're working on, we're,
Deficit projection or like what it's in debt now? Like,
That's how much
That's what they owe.
water and sewer allegedly owe the general fund.
right, but with the new rates, they shouldn't be at a deficit, they should be 5%.
No, this is accumulated over many years is the 1 million.
Right,
What they're
right.
going to be even on as of the start of the year is there will be no more deficit.
Right.
The income that we receive
Right, there's
in
debt.
water and sewer is going to pay the expenses.
Right.
It does nothing. It does
Exactly.
nothing to help the.
There's
1
long-standing
million.
debt there, but there's not a mismatch in the budget, the deficit.
That's right.
It's growing.
So it's not paying off the existing debt to the
not
general
at all.
fund.
yeah.
And they can adjust. Obviously, a rate change can occur. Again, if they find
every
out
time.
that they're not succeeding in meeting expenses with income, they can adjust in 3 or 6 months. Again.
Yeah.
Well, that's good news.
But for recommendations, though, I think we really do need to put down, whether it be CHIP or we go out independently, we need something more than an audit. We need somebody to actually test the veracity of our accounting practices and make sure we're actually doing it correctly.
So, yeah, I think the big
You
thing is,
can't afford one. You can't afford a forensic audit, and that's what you're asking for.
yeah, it's gonna be huge. That'll be
Not a
big.
prayer. That's a serious, it's been talked about before. That is a really expensive item. And what's it going to get you, frankly?
And I would argue it's not necessary.
Well, the errors are killing us, it seems. The errors
Well-
depleted a surplus.
But they're errors in the past.
Sure.
If we can correct what we have right now, then like I said, I think we just have to kind of accept what's happened in the past
Sure.
and
Well, and that's the point. That's kind of the point, because we are starting fresh
Yeah.
July 1 for water and sewer. Well, start with the new bills that will come out in September. But that's the point. That's why this says here that we're not going to fund the FY25 commitments listed in the restricted assigned fund balances.
Right.
So these things that we voted on,
Yeah.
these things that we voted on here, wherever my book is, here, that we said we want to fund. Not the what do you call them? Not the special stuff, but all that money that we moved out last week. We are not going to fund those, even though they're in the budget for funding.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. We moved them out, but now we've confirmed that we're not funding them. For
Right.
the next
Okay,
fiscal.
so let's get this, let's figure out what we need to give to Jim and Stacy, and who's the third person in the office?
Robin.
Robin. I think I've met Robin. Let's get it to them. I can meet with them to try and get everything figured out so we have at least the numbers back up. And then once we have the template with what we expect, I can work on building out a spreadsheet that we can use for variances to actuals to projected. We can build either inside that workbook, probably most elegant would be to put it in the same workbook as additional tabs, and we can just dig into it. And this is going to be a really big workbook that we have to save in some kind of shared drive, or
There's a shared drive established for the team now.
okay, and put it in there, and we just figure out how to do that. But yeah, we've got to get somebody that can help Jim and Stacy and Robin, because I mean, Jim's not up to it. Jim can give us the numbers to fill it, but to update it on a regular basis, we've filling that position, and I would only focus on, if answering the phone, there's other people who can do that. I mean, if we could just hire a semi-retired accountant that wants to work, I mean,
Good
can
luck
work on
with
this.
that.
What?
Good luck with that.
Oh, I knew some, but they fully retired.
Yeah.
All the retired accountants I know, honestly, are doing audits for people and doing at-home accounting. Seriously.
Oh, it's,
Right. So just to pick up on that and then kind of shifting is like, yes, the emphasis when it comes to hiring will definitely be on the skill set around financial account, like any sort of correlation with assisting with projects and tracking and helping the department heads and translate and keep track. So there just has been a disconnect, and I'd like to address that with a new person onboarding, and then these new practices we're attempting to put into place. So I hope there's some continuity and follow through. But because of time, and I really do have to leave at like 5:15, I just wanted to review this that I'm pretty sure I forwarded to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
It's
and
like I can
Carter-
even prove my receipts.
Just one item, Carter, to keep in the back of your mind.
Yes.
The last I heard from Chip, we were over 50% of our initial hours were gone. I
Yes.
just want to make sure we're keeping track of that. I know we're kind of open-ended, but it's going to start racking up. So
Definitely. Yeah, they're gonna hit that.
we
But-
knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. We sure
I
did.
think we talked about that.
Yeah. So, but you're right. I think the contract is just like at least 96 hours.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Frank.
When you fix it, it will make my job enormously easier.
That's the goal. Okay. Oh, sorry. And also to recap what I heard, I will coordinate a meeting. Well, I have to coordinate 2 meetings with Chip and Newport folks, Newport staff, which is one, the follow through. Again, Chip's correspondence has not stopped. He has found more things and been tracking them in the spreadsheet. And so we'll assign or try to establish early next week a meeting for Jim, Rick, myself, and Chip to sit down and say what is remaining. I think what I'm hearing is there's a lot of questions though, and it sounds like that, I don't know if this could be just one mega meeting or if it is, like if we can address what he has found internally, but then also have a follow-up meeting where we look at
I
with
just-
Jim and Chip, I mean, Rick, optional, honestly, sorry, but looking at this cash flow and saying, does this stand up? Does this match what you're seeing, Chip? Does this look accurate and follow patterns that you have seen in the past, Jim?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I just
Those are
have
kind of
operating,
two-
I just have general operating questions like,
Yeah.
why can't we print out a monthly expense and revenue? I mean, why?
Yeah.
I don't
It's
understand.
NEMRIC. I mean, it's just because it's an old database that they're using that wasn't in order to, and I remember in early 2000s when we were converting from an SAP, old accounting system to, I want to say SAP, in order to build a report like that wasn't something that was pre-built, you had to program. It's not a relational database like we have and all this other cool stuff nowadays. So it literally requires programming to take that data and, you know, reference cell C2, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. There's none of the sexy stuff.
Because
we're used to.
Jim says he does these things, but they're all cumulative. And so,
And I went down there and I looked at NEMRIC yesterday with Stacy, and you would pick, I want to report on like revenue from month 11, and revenue would be cumulative through those 11 months. It was not, this is the month of November,
Right.
and the revenue in November, it's revenue through
through
November.
November.
So it wasn't like,
Compare.
This is why.
so you
I
have to
get-
then do,
This is what Jim did for us.
Yeah, you have to, every month you have to
Every
compare
month.
the.
so you had to do a subtraction function
Right.
to go through, and that's purely a limitation of the software, the way it's designed,
Right.
because they weren't using some database like a Microsoft tool in the background. It's what they built back in 1980.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's, Stacy was supposed to reach out today and find out if they could provide us a month by month expense and revenue statement. But it didn't even dawn on me that she wouldn't be here or
Right.
might not have sent anything.
Yeah.
Can we send her an email, seeing if she got a response back from NEMRIC?
Yeah, so Stacy was to give us
And she may not have gotten a response today from NEMRIC.
month by month. Yeah. Okay, so sorry, recapping is definitely a lot of questions to be had. And so I'll be probably trying to establish those meetings on Monday morning, maybe Sunday. Sunday homework.
And I can come in. I'm making some changes, and so I have some flexibility. So
Yeah, it would be good to include Hal.
Yes,
And
definitely.
we just need to make sure it's okay for,
Right.
we don't need people in the community wondering what our tax force members are
yeah,
doing.
I don't want to overstep.
You know what I mean?
Trust me, I'm not looking to complicate my life that much.
Yes.
And then the final piece is, I know we only have like a few minutes to talk, but since we overlooked this, does this feel good with
Yes.
folks? Cool.
Well, I mean, the
Right.
factor sinking fund.
Yeah.
I mean,
It-
there's 100,000. Now, that's just money that we were planning on moving into those, because that's
Yes.
950.
Yeah, about 230.
Okay, those are the counts. Yeah, so
Yeah.
230,000 that we were planning on. So it just stays in the revenue line, and it doesn't. There's not an expense for right now.
Great.
So it actually decreases expenses or projected expenses,
And
which is good.
And what was mentioned earlier was that 5% capital reserve is established now within the new water and sewer to address these things. Is it enough? Is it going to be enough to match this? I do not think so. I know we are just trying to slowly and methodically build back these funds, but at least from the general fund side, and it just goes along with the same rhetoric which we were saying earlier, which is we can't be putting away money when we are in the red, when we are deficit spending. So I will probably, that's my other Sunday homework, is to type up a brief about this and include it, maybe present it. Yeah, I'll probably just present it. But Yeah, so those are the main things. So next steps would be meeting with the people that can verify these numbers because again, chewing soup, spinning wheels, all of the innuendos you want, but it is yeah, we can only do what we with the best numbers that we have, and this is not the other Excel spreadsheets were like a start, but again, it can't hold water. That's my last one I'll use, but any last thoughts? So you guys don't have to go for it this weekend. Have a nice rainy weekend.
Is this supposed to rain again all weekend?
Yes. Wow, it's hellacious. Anyways, cool. Any last thoughts? I don't mean to be like,
When's the next meeting?
It would be Friday.
Probably Friday.
But I will also reach out and see if we'll make it very public if we don't end up having a meeting, just depending on what happens throughout the week, how much where we are at, and if this is necessary. Because I do get it's every Friday, and now it's summer, and people are going to start traveling, and I mean.
Well, I was actually going to just inform you guys that come like the 20th of June, my availability is going to open up. I'm still working through the summer in my world, but without the kids and everything there,
Children.
I'll be able to be here.
The water sewer is not meeting every week currently because there are small groups.
Correct.
And if you want to retain your sanity, and I would
Yes.
think
Yeah.
you might want to do that.
That's that.
Think about
Yeah.
not meeting every week as a whole if you don't have something constructive to work
Right.
with.
Yes. I don't
If you have
disagree.
constructive stuff, that's a whole different ballgame, but
Right.
the spinning wheels makes
Right.
no sense.
Well, and that was the whole purpose of like yesterday's meeting was really this kind of work. So it, it was like actually talking about, which is what part of what we did today too, but,
Do we have a good handle on the cells that we need Jim to fill in on that sheet?
Yeah, I think we're keeping it pretty high level, and then it's just all about the comments about how we can address that. Jim's in the meeting with the subset, right?
yeah.
And I think that's the big part, is that if we have a comment field associated with a lot of these cells, Jim can speak to it and can reference the right resources. But we just need it so that someone else can look at it and say, okay, here's where it's coming from, here's where it is, because we've spent a lot of time doing that conversation, and then we'll just have to keep building on it. And if at some point we have to break it and rebuild it, that's fine, as long as we have the notes. But right now, there's no notes.
Yeah, I appreciate what Frank said when he said that really what they're looking for is our daily operating. So while we just need to show them that our revenue, that our revenue is meeting our expenses.
It's not going to.
And, yeah. So, we know it's not because we didn't ask for enough in the budget. Oh, about $200,000. But I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, baseline.
So-
That we can show that there's a plan going
Yes.
forward, that we have
Yes.
firm grasp of what's going on.
Yes.
Water and sewer has been addressed, so fire number 1 put out. This is the next fire we're putting out. And if we can show, here's why we're doing it, and we'll have to talk about, and I think we can present it to the city council of how do we fix this? What are the hard questions that have to be asked and made, and blah, blah, blah.
And something sticks in my head that when we're talking about 2.1 million over the last 10 years for that 200,000 plus that we, and the question was, can we go back to the voters for next year's, since there seemed to be some question, like when we do the bond vote, can we go back and say, we messed up and we need to ask for $200,000 more, divided by the grand list was like pennies on the 100. I mean, it wasn't much. And there seemed to be some question about that for this coming year.
Yeah, that was a question.
I don't
Yes,
recall.
That is that we, the voters, only agreed to that $4.9 million was our share.
Right.
The city said, your share, voters, is 4.9 million.
Right.
Do you agree with that? And we said, yes,
Yes.
we agree with that. You can set up a rate that will get you 4.9 million.
Right.
Now what happened was it turned out that that extra 200,000 shouldn't have been where it was. It should have been up where the 4.9 million was.
Right.
It should have been 5.1 million
Right.
that they should have come to us and asked for. So if you wanted to raise the rate, the tax rate, you need to go back to the public and ask for the extra 2.
Right.
Or, as Chip and Rick had mentioned, you can simply spend $200,000 less in your total
Which
expenses.
I think we're doing by moving the money out of those accounts and not funding them.
That's still not enough.
It's still.
And some of the money you're moving is in the water and sewer area
Yes.
and not in the
Right.
general fund
That's where
area.
the austerity comes in.
Pardon?
That's where the austerity comes in.
That's, could be. Or you have to go back to the voters and ask.
You may want to, in the next meeting with Ellen Stanley, just make sure that, I'm sure she wouldn't mind looking at what we've got so far and just saying, yeah, we think you're on the right track and make sure she's happy, you know.
That's probably
Yeah.
good at that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like a check-in.
yeah. I'm sure,
This is not, this is just a preliminary
I'm
review,
sure
not
she would
official, but yeah.
be willing to check in.
Yeah.
That's a good,
That's the thing about having somebody local is that
yeah.
she lives right here. She's just as invested as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So,
I would love to see us.
Thank you.
what's that?